The planet below was beautiful and deadly. Park stood at the observation window of the research vessel Horizon and watched the swirling green clouds of 4. The planet was covered in thick jungles and volcanic mountains. It looked peaceful from up here, but everyone in the galaxy knew the truth. 4 was a death world. The Galactic Council had blacklisted it 300 years ago. No colony ships were allowed to land. No tourists were permitted to visit. The only beings allowed on the surface were scientists with special permission and heavy weapons. Was one of those scientists. She was which meant she studied alien life forms. She was 28 years old with short black hair and calm brown eyes. Her often said she was too relaxed for her own good. Nothing seemed to scare her, not the void of space, not the strange creatures they encountered on distant worlds, not even the warnings about 4. "You know this is a terrible idea, right?" said. He was standing beside her, his arms crossed over his chest. Was an engineer, 4 years older than and her closest friend on the ship. He had a worried look on his face, which was normal for him. "It is just a quick trip down to the surface," said. "We collect some plant samples, scan a few life forms, and come back before dinner." "The last team that said that never came back at all," replied. Smiled. "That is why I am going and not you. Someone needs to stay here and fix the ship when things go wrong." Shook his head but said nothing more. He had learned long ago that arguing with was pointless. Once she made up her mind, nothing in the universe could change it. An hour later was aboard a small shuttle with 4 other crew members. Commander led the team. He was a species that looked like a tall insect with 4 arms and large compound eyes. His exoskeleton was dark blue, and his movements were quick and precise. Was strict and logical. He followed every rule in the Galactic Handbook without question. "Remember the protocol," said as the shuttle descended through the atmosphere. "We stay together. We do not touch anything without scanning it first, and if we encounter a Class 5 predator or higher, we retreat immediately. No exceptions." Everyone nodded. The shuttle shook as it passed through the clouds. Then the jungle appeared below them, endless and green, stretching in every direction. Pressed her face to the window like an excited child. They landed in a small clearing near a river. The air outside was hot and humid. Strange sounds filled the jungle. Birds that were not really birds sang in the trees. Insects the size of small dogs buzzed through the air. Everything on 4 was bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than on other worlds. The team moved carefully through the undergrowth, collected samples of plants and fungi. She scanned several small creatures and recorded their data. Everything was going smoothly. Too smoothly, would have said if he were here. Then they found the ravine. It was deep and narrow, cutting through the jungle like a wound in the earth. At the bottom, something was moving. Heard it first. A low, rumbling sound, almost like breathing but heavier, slower. "Stay back," Commander ordered. He raised his weapon and approached the edge of the ravine. Ignored him. She stepped forward and looked down. What she saw took her breath away. It was a creature unlike anything she had ever seen. It was massive, almost the size of a ground transport vehicle. Its body was covered in scales that were black as midnight. 6 powerful legs were curled beneath it. Along its spine, rows of sharp spines glistened with some kind of liquid. Venom, probably. Its head was broad and flat with a mouth full of teeth that could crush metal. And its eyes were glowing red like 2 burning coals in the darkness. The creature was looking right at her. "Dread beast," whispered. His voice was shaking, had never heard him sound afraid before. "Class 7 apex predator, we need to leave, now." The other crew members were already backing away. One of them, a small reptilian alien named Vox, was trembling so hard his scales were rattling. But did not move. She was watching the creature closely. It was not attacking, it was not even standing up. And now that she looked more carefully, she could see something else. There was a dark stain on the ground beneath it. Blood. The creature was injured. A deep gash ran along its side and the wound was still fresh. The dread beast made that rumbling sound again, but this time heard it differently. It was not a growl, it was a whimper. "It is hurt," she said softly. "It does not matter," snapped. "That thing has killed thousands. Entire colonies have been wiped out by its kind. We are leaving." "It is alone and wounded," said. "It is not attacking us. Look at it." "I am looking at a monster," replied, "and I am ordering you to return to the shuttle." Turned to face him, her expression was calm but firm. "Then go, I will catch up." Before anyone could stop her, she began climbing down into the ravine. The descent was difficult. The walls were steep and slippery, but moved carefully, finding handholds in the rock. Above her she could hear shouting orders. She ignored him. When she reached the bottom, the creature was only a few meters away. It watched her approach with those glowing red eyes. Up close, it was even more terrifying. Its teeth were as long as her forearm. Its breath was hot and smelled like smoke. One swipe of its claws could tear her in half. Knelt down in the dirt. She did not run. She did not scream. She simply looked at the creature and spoke in a soft voice. "Hello there. You are having a bad day, are you not?" The dread beast growled. The sound vibrated through his chest, but she did not flinch. "I am not going to hurt you," she continued. "I just want to help. Can I look at that wound?" Slowly, very slowly, she reached out her hand. The creature's growl grew louder. Its spines began to rise. Every instinct in the galaxy said this was the moment she would die. Her fingers touched its muzzle. The growl stopped. The dread beast blinked, its spines lowered, and then, to some amazement, it leaned into her touch. A deep rumbling sound came from its chest. Not a growl this time, something softer, almost like a purr. "There you go," whispered. "You are not so scary, are you? Just a big baby who got hurt." She spent the next 20 minutes treating the wound as best she could with her emergency medical kit. The creature let her work without complaint. It watched her with those red eyes, and something in them changed. The hostility faded. In its place was something else. Curiosity, maybe even trust. When finally climbed out of the ravine, the creature followed her. It limped on its injured leg, but it stayed close to her side. The rest of the team stared in horror. "What have you done?" demanded. Smiled, "I made a friend." "You cannot bring that thing on the ship." "Watch me." And she did. Despite every protest, every warning, every rule in the Galactic Handbook, Park walked back to the shuttle with a Class 7 apex predator limping beside her like a loyal pet. She named it Fluffy. The moment the shuttle doors opened aboard the Horizon, chaos erupted. Crew members ran screaming through the corridors. Alarms began blaring. Emergency lockdown protocols activated throughout the ship. Within minutes, half the crew had sealed themselves in their quarters, and the other half was pointing weapons at the cargo bay. Stood in the middle of it all with Fluffy pressed against her side. The massive creature was nervous. Its spines were half raised, and low growls rumbled in its throat. But it did not attack anyone. It simply stayed close to the small human who had shown it kindness. Commander was furious. His compound eyes were blazing with anger as he confronted in the cargo bay. "Do you understand what you have done?" he demanded. "That creature is classified as a Class 7 apex predator. The Galactic Council has clear rules about this. No such creature is permitted on any registered vessel. The punishment for violation is imprisonment, or exile, or worse." "The creature is injured and alone," replied calmly. "It needed help. I helped it." "It is a monster," shouted. "Its species has destroyed entire colonies. Thousands of beings have died because of creatures like this, and you brought it onto my ship." Fluffy growled louder at the raised voices, placed her hand on its muzzle, and the growl softened immediately. Took several steps backward, his forearms trembling. "Look at it," said quietly. "Does it look like it wants to hurt anyone? It is scared and confused. All these new smells and sounds are strange to it, but it trusts me, and I trust it." "You are insane," whispered. Humans are truly insane. Despite his protests, did not order the creature to be killed. Perhaps some part of him was curious. Perhaps he was simply afraid of what might happen if they tried to attack it. Either way, he gave a strict warning. The creature would stay in the cargo bay behind a reinforced containment barrier. If it showed any sign of aggression, it would be ejected into space immediately. No discussion. Agreed to the terms. She knew it was the best deal she was going to get. Appeared in the cargo bay an hour later. He looked at the massive black creature lying on the metal floor, then looked at the creature again. His expression was somewhere between disbelief and resignation. "So," he said slowly, "you adopted a death monster." "I named him Fluffy," replied with a smile. Closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Of course you did." Despite his doubts, helped set up a proper quarantine zone around the cargo bay. He rigged up cameras and sensors to monitor the creature's vital signs and behavior. He reinforced the containment barrier with extra plating, just in case. And he made sure the life support systems in that section of the ship were functioning properly. "If this thing kills us all, I am blaming you in my final log entry," he said as he worked. "Fair enough," replied. The days that followed were strange ones aboard the Horizon. The crew was divided into 3 groups. The first group was terrified. They refused to go anywhere near the lower decks. Some of them requested transfers to other ships. Others simply locked themselves in their rooms and prayed to whatever gods they believed in. The second group was curious. They watched the security footage of the cargo bay with fascination. They whispered in the hallways about the human and her monster. A few of them even placed bets on how long until something terrible happened. The third group was somewhere in between. They did not know what to think. A Class 7 predator was living on their ship, and instead of killing everyone, it was sleeping, eating, following around like an oversized pet. Spent every waking hour with Fluffy. She treated his wound every morning and every evening. She brought him food from the ship's supplies, meat mostly, which the creature devoured with frightening speed. She talked to him constantly, even though she knew he could not understand her words. It did not matter. The sound of her voice seemed to calm him. Slowly, Fluffy began to change. The fear in his eyes faded. He stopped growling whenever crew members walked past the cargo bay. He started making new sounds instead. Soft rumbles, low chirps, almost like he was trying to communicate. And he followed with his gaze wherever she went. When she left the cargo bay, he would watch the door until she returned. When she came back, his tail would thump against the floor, and he would press his massive head against the barrier, waiting for her touch. One night came to check on the monitoring systems. It was late, and the ship was quiet. He expected to find working at her data station, reviewing biological scans or something equally boring. Instead, he found her inside the containment zone. She was lying on the floor of the cargo bay, her back resting against Fluffy's side. The massive creature was curled around her like a protective wall. Its 6 legs were tucked beneath its body. Its spines were completely flat, and from its chest came a deep, steady sound. It was purring. Stood frozen in the doorway. He had seen many strange things in his years of space travel. He had visited alien worlds and met species that imagination, but he had never seen anything like this. A human sleeping peacefully in the arms of a creature that the entire galaxy feared. Opened her eyes and saw him watching. She smiled sleepily. "He is warm," she whispered, "like a giant heated blanket." Did not know what to say. He just shook his head and sat down on a nearby crate. For a long time he watched the two of them together, the monster and the human, the predator and its friend. "You really believe it will not hurt you?" he said finally. It was not a question. "He saved my life in the ravine," replied. "When I first touched him, he could have killed me in an instant, but he did not. He chose to trust me. The least I can do is trust him back. It is a beast. It operates on instinct." "Maybe, But instinct told him I was not a threat. Instinct told him I was trying to help. Instinct is not always about killing. Sometimes it is about surviving together. Was silent for a moment. He thought about all the species he had met in his travels. The like, who followed logic and rules. The reptilian Vox species, who feared everything different from themselves. The dozens of other aliens on this ship, all of them terrified of the creature in the cargo bay. And then there was a human, a member of a species that had only been part of the galactic community for a few centuries. Humans were strange. They formed attachments to everything. They adopted alien animals as pets. They made friends with species that wanted to eat them. They looked at the universe and saw not danger but possibility. Maybe that was what made them special. Maybe that was why the galaxy did not quite know what to do with them. Stood up and walked toward the containment barrier. Fluffy's red eyes opened and fixed on him. For a moment they stared at each other, the engineer and the monster. Then Fluffy made a soft chirping sound and closed his eyes again. Let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "All right," he said quietly, "maybe you are not so bad after all." He looked at who was already falling back asleep against her unlikely pillow. A small smile crossed his face. "But I am still blaming you if something goes wrong," he added. His only response was a gentle snore. Fluffy's purring continued, steady and deep, like the heartbeat of something ancient and powerful. And for the first time since the creature came aboard, the horizon felt strangely peaceful. 3 weeks passed since Fluffy came aboard the horizon. The creature's wound had healed completely. Its black scales gleamed under the cargo bay lights. Its movements were no longer slow and pained. It was healthy again, strong and powerful, and that made some members of the crew very nervous. Was one of those crew members. He was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and 4 yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. He came from a species called the, known for their cautious nature and long memories, had read every report about dread beasts. He knew the stories. He knew the death counts, and he was certain that keeping the creature alive was a mistake that would kill them all. "It is only a matter of time," said to a small group of crew members gathered in a storage room. "The beast is healed now. It is at full strength. How long until it decides it is hungry? How long until it breaks through that barrier and tears us apart?" The others listened nervously. There were 5 of them in total. An engineer, 2 reptilian security officers, a small, furry navigator from a species called the. They all shared the same fear. "Commander will not listen," continued. "He is too afraid of the human. She has some kind of hold over him, but we do not have to wait for permission. We can solve this problem ourselves." "What are you suggesting?" asked one of the security officers. His yellow eyes narrowed. "We kill it tonight, while the human is sleeping in her quarters." There was silence in the room. The weight of the idea hung in the air like smoke. Killing a creature without authorization was against galactic law, but so was keeping a Class 7 predator on a ship. Rules were already broken. What was one more? "I have access to the heavy weapons locker," the security officer said slowly. "Plasma rifles. They should be enough to put the beast down." Nodded. "Then we do it tonight, before it is too late." That night the horizon was quiet. Most of the crew was asleep. The ship drifted through the darkness of space, far from any planet or station, was in her quarters, resting after a long day of work. She had no idea what was about to happen. And his group moved through the corridors like shadows. They wore dark clothing. They carried plasma rifles that hummed with deadly energy. Their footsteps were silent on the metal floors. When they reached the cargo bay, punched in the override code that would lower the containment barrier. The barrier flickered and disappeared. Fluffy was lying in the center of the cargo bay. His massive body rose and fell with each breath. His eyes were closed. He looked peaceful, almost gentle, but the group saw only a monster, a threat that needed to be eliminated. "Aim for the head," whispered, "on my signal." 5 plasma rifles pointed at the sleeping creature. 5 fingers rested on 5 triggers. The moment was frozen in time. Then Fluffy's eyes opened. They glowed like fire in the dim light. The creature rose to its feet in one smooth motion, faster than anything that size should be able to move. Its spines flared outward, sharp and glistening with venom. A growl rose from its throat, so deep and powerful that the walls of the cargo bay vibrated. The group stumbled backward. The navigator dropped his rifle and ran. The others held their ground, but their hands were shaking. Fire screamed. Plasma bolts lit up the cargo bay. They streaked toward Fluffy like burning arrows. But the creature was no longer where it had been. It moved with impossible speed, dodging the first shots, absorbing others against its armored scales. The blasts that hit it barely left a mark. Fluffy roared. The sound was deafening, a thunderclap of rage and power that echoed through the entire ship. Crew members woke from their sleep. Alarms began blaring. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the corridors. But Fluffy did not attack. The creature placed itself between the armed group and the door on the far side of the cargo bay. That door led to the crew quarters. That door led to. Realized what was happening. The beast was not trying to kill them. It was protecting the path to the human. It was guarding her even now. "It is not attacking," one of the security officers whispered. "Why is it not attacking?" The cargo bay door burst open. Stood in the doorway, her hair messy from sleep, her eyes wide with shock. She took in the scene in an instant. The armed crew, the lowered barrier, Fluffy standing between them like a living wall. "Stop," she shouted. "Everyone stop." She ran into the cargo bay without hesitation. The armed group watched in disbelief as she pushed past them and placed herself directly in front of Fluffy. She stood between the creature and the plasma rifles, her arms spread wide. "You want to kill him? You will have to go through me first." "Move aside, human," hissed. "That thing is a danger to us all." "That thing has not hurt anyone," shot back. "You came into his space with weapons. You threatened him, and look at what he did. He did not kill you, he did not even try, he just protected me." Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Appeared, out of breath from running. Behind him came Commander and several other crew members. They all froze at the sight before them. Stepped forward, he was holding a data pad. "I pulled the security footage," he said. "All of it, every minute since the creature came aboard." He tapped the screen and images appeared in the air. Recordings of Fluffy sleeping peacefully, Fluffy eating his food, Fluffy watching with those glowing eyes. And in all of that footage, not a single act of aggression. Not once did the creature threaten anyone. Not once did it try to escape. Not once did it behave like the monster everyone feared. 3 weeks, said. That creature has been on this ship for 3 weeks, and it has shown more restraint than most of the people in this room. Commander stepped forward. His compound eyes moved from the footage to Fluffy too. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke, "Lower your weapons." Spun around. "Commander, you cannot be serious. That thing is a Class 7 predator. The Galactic protocols are clear about this." "The protocols say nothing about a creature that refuses to kill," replied. "The protocols were written by beings who never saw what I am seeing right now." He looked at Fluffy, who had stopped growling. The creature was pressing its head against its back, making soft, rumbling sounds. That is not the behavior of a monster. That is the behavior of a guardian. The armed group slowly lowered their weapons. Looked like he wanted to argue, but the fight had gone out of him. He stared at Fluffy with something other than fear in his eyes. Confusion, maybe, or the beginning of doubt. "You are confined to quarters until further notice," said. "The rest of you return to your stations. This incident is over." The group dispersed, helped restore the containment barrier, though both of them knew it was mostly for show now. Fluffy could break through it any time he wanted. He stayed not because he was trapped, but because he chose to stay. Sat down on the floor of the cargo bay. Fluffy curled around her, his massive body forming a protective circle. She leaned against his warm scales and let out a long breath. "That was too close," she whispered. Fluffy made a soft chirping sound and nuzzled the top of her head. "Watch them from the doorway. You know this is going to change things, right? The whole ship is going to hear about what happened tonight." Smiled tiredly. "Good, maybe they will finally stop being afraid." And slowly, over the following days, that is exactly what happened. The story of the incident spread through the ship. The monster that could have killed but chose not to. The beast that protected its human instead of attacking its enemies. For the first time, the crew of the Horizon began to see Fluffy not as a threat, but as something else entirely. Something worth protecting in return. The distress signal came at midnight. It cut through the silence of the horizon like a knife, waking the crew from their sleep and sending them rushing to their stations. Commander stood on the bridge, his compound eyes scanning the incoming data. "Mining colony Delta 7, he announced. "Located on the volcanic moon of, they report a reactor meltdown. Multiple tunnels have collapsed. 32 workers are trapped underground. Rescue teams cannot reach them because of extreme heat and unstable terrain." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The trapped miners had hours to live, maybe less. The heat from the volcanic activity would kill them long before they ran out of air. "How far are we from?" asked the navigation officer. 4 hours at maximum speed, replied. "We are the closest vessel in the sector." Was on the bridge. She had come running when she heard the alarm. Now she listened to the reports with growing concern. Volcanic environment, extreme heat, collapsing tunnels. Standard rescue equipment would not survive those conditions. Standard rescue teams would not survive those conditions. But Fluffy would. The thought hit her like lightning. Dread beasts were native to volcanic environments. They had evolved on a world covered in lava flows and poisonous gases. Their scales could withstand temperatures that would melt metal. Their 6 powerful legs could navigate the most unstable ground. Fluffy was built for exactly this kind of situation. "Commander," said, stepping forward, "I want to volunteer for the rescue team, and I want to bring Fluffy with me." The bridge went completely silent. Every eye turned to look at her, stared at her like she had lost her mind. "You want to bring the creature to a populated colony," he said slowly. "A Class 7 predator, among civilians." "Fluffy can survive conditions that would kill any of us," explained. "He can move through fire and lava. He can clear debris with his strength. He can carry injured people on his back. Commander, he might be the only chance those miners have." Was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the data on his screen. 32 lives, 4 hours away, no other option. "If that creature harms a single civilian, you will answer for it," he said finally. "Do you understand?" Nodded. "I understand." 4 hours later, the horizon dropped out of hyperspace above the volcanic moon. The surface below was a nightmare of fire and smoke. Rivers of lava flowed between black mountains. The mining colony was built into the side of a massive crater, and half of it was already buried under collapsed rock. The rescue shuttle landed near the colony's main entrance, was first out the door, with Fluffy right behind her. Followed, carrying emergency medical supplies and communication equipment. He had refused to let go alone. The colonists who were waiting outside froze when they saw Fluffy. Some of them screamed. Others grabbed tools and weapons, ready to defend themselves against the monster that had just appeared. "Wait," shouted, raising her hands. "He is with me. He is here to help." A large man with burns on his arms pushed through the crowd. He was the colony's foreman. His name was Bong, and his face was covered in ash and sweat. "Help! That thing is a dread beast. It will kill us all." "He will not hurt anyone," said firmly. "I promise you. Please just tell me where the trapped miners are." Bong stared at her. Then he looked at Fluffy, who was standing calmly behind her, his glowing red eyes scanning the environment. The creature did not growl. It did not bare its teeth. It simply waited. "The main tunnel collapsed 2 hours ago," Bong said finally. 32 people are trapped in the lower levels. The heat down there is over 1,000 degrees. Our rescue equipment melted. We could not get through. "Show me," said. They entered the mines. The heat hit them like a physical force, even with protective suits, and could feel it pressing against their skin. Warning lights flashed on their equipment. The suits were already starting to fail. But Fluffy moved forward without hesitation. The heat did not bother him at all. His black scales absorbed it like sunlight. His 6 legs carried him over rubble and through gaps in the collapsed tunnels. He was in his element. They reached the blocked passage. A wall of fallen rock and twisted metal stood between them and the trapped miners. Normal cutting tools would take hours to get through. Hours they did not have. Looked at Fluffy. "Can you do it, boy? Can you get through?" Fluffy studied the wall for a moment. Then he lowered his head and charged. The impact was tremendous. Rock and metal flew in all directions. Fluffy hit the barrier again and again, his powerful legs driving him forward, his armored head smashing through obstacles like they were made of paper. Within minutes, a passage had opened in the wall. Hot air rushed out from the other side. Suit alarm screamed warnings. She ignored it and pushed forward. The miners were huddled in a small chamber beyond the collapse. 32 of them covered in dust and burns, their eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. When they saw Fluffy squeeze through the passage behind, several of them screamed. "It is okay," shouted over the noise. "He is friendly. He is going to help us get out." The miners did not believe her. How could they? They were looking at a monster from their worst nightmares, a creature that every story said would kill them without mercy. Then something happened that changed everything. A small child was sitting in the corner of the chamber, a little girl with dark hair and tearful eyes. She was maybe 6 years old. Her mother was holding her tightly, trying to protect her from the beast that had just entered their shelter. Fluffy noticed the child. He moved toward her slowly, his massive body lowering to the ground. His spines were completely flat. His growl was gone. Instead, he made a soft cooing sound, almost like a bird. The child stopped crying. She looked at Fluffy with wide, curious eyes. "Mommy," she whispered, "the monster is sad." Before her mother could stop her, the little girl reached out and touched Fluffy's muzzle. The creature closed his eyes and leaned into her touch, just like he had done with all those weeks ago. The room went silent. Smiled, "See, he just looks scary. Inside he is a big softy." There was no more time for talk. The tunnels were getting hotter. They needed to move now. Fluffy carried the injured on his back. 5 at a time, the weakest and most hurt miners climbed onto the creature's broad shoulders. He moved through the burning tunnels with care, protecting his passengers from falling debris, shielding them from the worst of the heat. Trip after trip, he carried them to safety and helped those who could walk. They guided them through the passage Fluffy had created, keeping them moving, keeping them alive. The rescue took over an hour. When the last miner finally emerged into the open air, cheers erupted from the waiting crowd. 32 lives saved, not a single person lost. Fluffy stood in the middle of the celebration, looking confused by all the noise. The little girl from the chamber ran up to him and hugged his leg. Her mother followed, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she said too. "Thank you for bringing him." Put her hand on Fluffy's side. The creature rumbled contentedly. Nearby, Bong the foreman was talking to Commander, who had come down from the ship to oversee the rescue. "I have never seen anything like it," Bong was saying. "That beast worked harder than any machine. It saved my people, all of them." Looked at Fluffy with new eyes. "Yes," he said quietly, "it did." When the shuttle lifted off that evening, Fluffy was lying in the cargo hold with his head in his lap. Sat beside them, exhausted but smiling. "You know," said, "I think the universe is going to have to find a new word for monster, because that is definitely not what he is." Stroked Fluffy's scales gently. "Maybe the word was never right to begin with. Maybe we just never gave creatures like him a chance to be anything else." Below them, the volcanic moon grew smaller and smaller, and aboard the horizon, a beast that had once been feared was now something else entirely. A hero. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days of the rescue, every station and every planet was talking about the human and her monster. The story was everywhere, in news broadcasts, in social feeds, in whispered conversations at trading posts and spaceports. A Class 7 predator had saved 32 lives on a volcanic moon. A creature that the Galactic Council had ordered killed on sight had become a hero. Some people did not believe it. They said it was a hoax, a trick, some kind of elaborate lie. But then the videos appeared. Footage from the colony showing Fluffy carrying injured miners on his back. Images of the beast breaking through collapsed tunnels. And most powerful of all, a clip of a little girl hugging the monster's leg while he made soft, gentle sounds. That video was viewed over 1 billion times in the first week. The Horizon was ordered to return to Galactic Central Station. Commander received the message with a grim expression. He knew what was coming, would have to face the Council. She had broken their laws. She had kept a forbidden creature alive. No matter how many lives Fluffy had saved, the rules were the rules, and the Council did not like it when their rules were broken. The journey to Central Station took 2 weeks. During that time, stayed close to Fluffy. She did not know what was going to happen when they arrived. She did not know if they would take him away from her, or worse. "Whatever happens," she told Fluffy one night, sitting in the cargo bay with her head against his warm side, "I want you to know that I do not regret any of it. Meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me." Fluffy made a low, rumbling sound and nuzzled her hair. He did not understand her words, but he understood her tone. He understood that she loved him, and in his own way, he loved her too. Central Station was the largest structure in the known galaxy. It floated in the heart of civilized space, a massive ring of metal and light that served as the seat of the Galactic Council. Thousands of ships came and went every day. Millions of beings from hundreds of species lived and worked on its decks. It was the center of everything. The Horizon docked at one of the outer ports. Security teams were waiting. They surrounded the ship with weapons drawn, ready for trouble. But when the cargo bay doors opened and Fluffy emerged beside, walking calmly on his 6 legs, the guards hesitated. They had heard the stories. They had seen the videos. And the creature in front of them did not match the monster in their heads. Was escorted to the Grand Council chamber. It was a vast circular room at the heart of the station, with seats rising in tiers all around. Representatives from 100 different species filled those seats. They watched in silence as the small human walked into the center of the floor. Fluffy was not permitted inside. He was being held in a secure area near the docks, could feel his absence like a missing limb. The head of the council was an ancient being called the High Arbiter. She was from a species that no one could pronounce, with silver skin and eyes that seemed to see through time itself. She had led the council for over 300 years. Her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the chamber. "Park of Earth," the High Arbiter said, "you have been brought before this council to answer for your actions. You violated Galactic Protocol 773 by harboring a Class 7 predator on a registered vessel. You endangered the lives of your crew members. You exposed civilian populations to extreme risk. What do you have to say for yourself?" Stood tall. She was small compared to most of the beings in this room, but her voice was steady and clear. "I found a wounded creature," she said. "It was alone and dying. I helped it because that is what decent beings do. I brought it onto my ship because no one else would give it a chance. And since that day, Fluffy has not harmed a single person. Not one. Instead, he saved 32 lives on. He protected my crew when they tried to kill him. He has shown more kindness and loyalty than many of the so-called civilized species in this galaxy." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some of the representatives looked angry, others looked thoughtful. A few were nodding their heads. The High Arbiter raised a hand for silence. "You speak of kindness and loyalty, but Protocol 773 exists because dread beasts have killed thousands of beings over the centuries. Entire colonies have been destroyed by creatures of this species. How do you explain that?" Took a deep breath. "I do not deny that dread beasts have killed, but I think we need to ask why. Were those creatures attacking because they were evil, or were they attacking because they were afraid, because they were threatened, because they had never been shown any other way?" She looked around the chamber at all the different faces watching her. "When I found Fluffy, he was injured and scared. Every instinct told him to see me as an enemy, but I showed him kindness instead of violence. I treated him like a living being instead of a monster, and he responded. He chose to trust me. He chose to protect me. He chose to be something other than what the galaxy expected him to be." The chamber was completely silent now. "Maybe the problem is not the creatures," continued. "Maybe the problem is how we see them. We call them monsters and treat them like monsters, and then we are surprised when they act like monsters. But what if we gave them a chance? What if we looked at them as creatures that could be understood instead of threats that must be destroyed?" The High Arbiter studied for a long moment. Her ancient eyes were unreadable. "You suggest that the galaxy has been wrong about these creatures for 300 years. "I suggest that the galaxy has been afraid," replied. "And fear makes us do terrible things. It makes us see enemies where there are none. It makes us destroy what we do not understand." She paused. "Humans know this lesson well. We almost destroyed ourselves with fear many times, but we learned that there is another way. That compassion is stronger than fear. That love can change even the most dangerous hearts." The council deliberated for 3 hours, waited in a small room nearby, not knowing what would happen, sat with her, silent and supportive. He had refused to leave her side. When she was finally called back to the chamber, her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The High Arbiter stood to deliver the verdict. "The council has reached a decision," she announced. "We have reviewed the evidence. We have watched the recordings from the horizon and from the colony on, and we have listened to your words, Park." The chamber held its breath. "It is the judgment of this council that the classification of dread beasts as Class 7 kill-on-sight predators is hereby revoked. Effective immediately, these creatures will be reclassified as protected species under human guardianship. A new program will be established allowing trained humans to serve as caretakers for misunderstood species across the galaxy." Felt tears spring to her eyes. She could not believe what she was hearing. "Furthermore," the High Arbiter continued, "the creature known as Fluffy is hereby granted protected status. He will remain in your custody, Park. You have proven that some bonds transcend fear and protocol. The galaxy will be watching to see what other lessons humanity has to teach us." The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives were cheering, others were arguing, but did not hear any of it. She was already running toward the doors. She found Fluffy in the secure holding area. The moment she entered, the massive creature rose to his feet and made a sound she had never heard before. It was something between a bark and a cry, pure joy-given voice. Threw her arms around his neck and buried her face in his scales. "We did it, boy," she whispered. "We did it." Later, she walked through the corridors of Central Station with Fluffy at her side. Aliens scattered in fear as they approached. Then they stopped. They looked at the beast and the human together, and slowly their fear turned to wonder. Caught up with them, shaking his head with a smile. "You know you have started something crazy, right? Every human in the galaxy is going to want their own monster now." Grinned. "Good. Maybe they will find out what we already know." "And what is that?" She looked at Fluffy, who gazed back at her with those glowing red eyes. Eyes that no longer seemed frightening at all. Eyes that were filled with trust and love and something that might have been gratitude. "That there are no monsters," she said softly, "only creatures that have not been loved yet." Fluffy rumbled contentedly and pressed his head against her shoulder. And somewhere in the vast, endless galaxy, a new chapter was beginning. A chapter where fear gave way to understanding, where monsters became friends, where the smallest act of kindness could change everything. All because one human looked at a beast and saw not a threat, but a heart waiting to be found.